Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello, good morning, welcome back to the channel, and of course, welcome back to the garage, where we have the new addition, the GTC4 Lasso, the car that I've just picked up, which today we're going to be taking over to Mtune. Now, lots of you have been asking me what's happening, when is the completion of the engine work that Mtune are doing to my project car, the Red Edition Ford Focus RS. Well, they've finished the first round. Today, I'm going to be going to pick up the car to find out how much power it's making, and to tell you a little bit about what's going to be happening next with it, where I'm taking it, and the next round of modifications too. But before we jump into the Ferrari to head over to Mtune, the Ford GT is going to be loaded up because that is going to be heading off now to have its first service. After 600 miles, the run-in is completed, but it has to go to have an oil change service so that now it can be fully unleashed and also taken to the track. So let's get the covers off, let's get the GT loaded up, then we'll jump into the Ferrari, head over to Mtune, and get the day rolling. Let's do this then. Quick unlock, pop open the door, we'll get this started up. First, how many miles do we have on the dashboard now? 641. Ready then for the 600 mile oil change service. It's quite dark in here, apologies for that, but foot on the brake, let's give it a start. And into life we go. So, close the door down. I'm actually joined today by Schmark. Yes, it's low on fuel. That's because it's going to IAMS. If you put a car in an exhibition show, it has to be quite low. So we're not going to be filling that back up. But we will take this on out now and go get it loaded. Turbo Tony doing the honours today to take it up to have the oil service done. The GT is locked and loaded then, strapped down with Mr. Tony Turbo Transport. Shout out to him. Let's just come around to the back very quickly. The shape of this thing is always so nuts when you look at it, how you can see straight through under the rear wing, along the side of the teardrop cabin. It's never going to get boring. I keep discovering almost new angles actually looking at this car. So we need to get the back of this truck closed up, that will be off, and we will see it again later on today. The fairly obvious thing about this is that taking one car to bring back another means that we are going to need two drivers. So I'm in the passenger seat of the Lasso for the first time, joined by Schmark, who's driving it, who did many miles in the FF, but now we're in the Lasso. I'm enjoying the panoramic roof up above me. In fact, it's pretty incredible how much glass this car has, and just getting a little feel for what it's actually like to be, well, in the passenger seat. So for example, pressing the display where you can do things from here. Fun thing, I don't really know what you can do. VD8, we're in sport mode. We are, what do we have? Well, you can bring up the navigation, show you where we are. No, it gives you a compass, our location, and generally, I guess, just enjoying what's going on. Although I tell you what, the Lasso is so much more gentle and chilled than the FF. Yes, we haven't yet opened the exhaust valve, so when you start it, when you get a cold start, it actually keeps it valved, which is something I'm not that used to. So I think I'm going to have to do something with the valve to make it a touch noisier. But the general fit and finish and the quality is really, really nice. The carbon, the stitching, everything. Just, yeah. Very, very lovely. So we've got about an hour and a half journey from central London to get to Mtune, where everything is ready, we've been told. So very shortly, we're going to be seeing the new, well, I say the new, it feels like a new, the new engine in my Red RS. We are about to arrive then. Mtune is just here. Now, of course, I came out to bring the RS itself, came back out to drive, have a go in their development car, which was quite an experience, it has to be said, but they are literally here. This is the Mtune HQ, so we'll head into the industrial estate and get the car parked up and then go straight in to take a look at the new car. I'll tell you what though, sound of this V12 in the background, absolutely love it. Here we are, there's another RS just parked out at the front. We will park up right here, head on in, and go and take a look at how the car has got on. I'm actually really quite excited. It's been a long process, probably a couple of months or so in total. Nice rear view camera coming in past that RS. I think mine's inside in the workshop at the moment, but we will see it very shortly. And I'm back in the workshop at Mtune, which means the Red RS is ready. They've completed this round of engine modifications, so I'm going to pop open the bonnet and we'll have a run through of what they've changed. The likes of the upgraded internals. It also has a sports downpipe. When I start it up later on and then take it for a drive, you will hear what that sounds like, and as well as that, it has the Mtune box, which has a controller to change the mapping of the engine as we go. Also, alongside, that's a pretty cool neighbour here in the workshop workshop. Looking at the Red RS from the outside, it is more or less as it was before. There is one thing actually that's changed. It's the Race Red paintwork, one of only 300 UK cars, of course, in this colour, a limited edition, so to speak. We've got the carbon fibre Ventus Veloce exterior kit, the BBS CIR wheels, but around the front is a small sneak peek as to what's been done under the bonnet. The Mtune intercooler. Now in this case, you can see painted with the Mtune logo in race red to exactly match with the bodywork of the car. Normally it would be in white, but that gives you a sense as to what's going on underneath here. Now we just opened it up to have a quick look and popped off the Kuro Carbon engine cover so that we can see more of the internals. But let's just come through and take a look at this. Proto trim interior in here, the red and black Alcantara. Pop open the engine bay. There we've got the Mtune kit. I'll come back to that very shortly. Now this is always a little bit of a challenge to do on my own. The catch is just in there. Lift this up and there we have it. Now to run through this quickly, I am going to grab this latch and try and just connect it in there. There we go. So this is what we're looking at, the Eco Beast, taking the Eco Boost engine that it starts with, and well, we'll get to the numbers in a second. So starting at the very top, you have the intake. This is the same intake pipe that is found in the Heritage RS, also as I had in my Blue RS with the FPM 375 package. There's now a dual opening that you have at this end for more airflow, and a secondary intake pipe behind here on this specific configuration to obviously feed the turbo, which is positioned down behind the back. On the top of the engine, normally you'd have the cover here, hiding things a little bit. There's a new alloy manifold. Normally that would be plastic and only support up to about 400 horsepower. Remember, the standard car has 350, so that's a new component from Mtune. But basically, the entire engine has been completely reworked. New, just about everything. New pistons, new conrods, new you name it, it had it, in order to be able to support the additional power that this engine is now making. It does look very nice though, with that enlarged intake, of course, being wider, means there's more airflow through it. The carbon fibre parts from Kuro Carbon, just to go on top of that as well for visual purposes. And yes, this engine, let's talk about the power output. So this is going to be a multi-stage process, but it is now running 470 brake horsepower. So almost 500 horsepower, over 100 up from standard. Standard 350, we're talking 470 brake, so maybe towards 480 if you're talking in metric terms, PS terms. That's going to be moderately entertaining. It's still at the moment, with everything else, pretty stock, so there's more to be upgraded that we can discuss later on. But yeah, needless to say, this is going to be pretty epic. We'll need to put the carbon cover back on, but I'm just going to pop this down for the moment. If I do this very delicately, clip that back in, drop that down into place, come round and grab the key with its red key cover, just come in here, take a step. Of course, something I've got to think about is new engine means basically run-in process, again, to be aware of and to be very careful with. Slide the seat back a notch. But let's take a listen then to the startup sound of this exhaust. Oh, deep grumble burbles into life. Yeah, there we go. You can hear the valves, the X-Force Varex exhaust system, which of course you can also control from the app on the phone. I'm looking forward to driving this. I had that go in their development car, but this is, oh, yeah, that's a new sound. That's definitely a little bit of a new sound going on there. The sport mode. Gonna enjoy this on the drive back home. The SS Tuning steering wheel. This is so nice. So here we go. We're back with the Red RS. The adventures are ahead. Before going anywhere, I want to show you how this works. The Mtune box, Mtune's controller, that basically gives you gauges, performance data, troubleshooting, and lets you control some of the maps and other settings that have now been introduced to the car. So the ignition itself is on for the car. This plugs into the OBD port down there in the footwell, and then you have this digital screen, which you can see we can scroll through. We've got the gauges at the moment. If we go in there, it basically accesses the ECU and gets a number of bits of data about it, temperatures, and the map that we currently have set. So we've got 1, 2, and 3. I'll show you those in a second. If we go back to the front screen, you've got performance. So here you can time your 0 to 60 or your quarter mile, all done directly through the ECU. Troubleshooting if you have any error codes. And then down here into the tune, you can actually do a number of different things. So if you go into change map, you can actually completely immobilize the car until you plug this back in to wake it up. So kind of anti-theft system. Then in adjustments, in here, if we load this, you have a number of different things, and this is the flat shifting RPM limit. So if you want now to shift holding the throttle down when you change gear, it will rev to 5,000 RPM, I think it's set to, but you can change this, which basically means that it will keep the turbos spooled when you drop into the next gear, rather than losing all of that pressure by backing off the throttle to do the shift. So that's kind of clever. You can change the launch control rev limit, and you can change the map slot. Now check this out as well. If I go to, well, let's say map number 3, so map number 1 is full power, 470 or so. Map 2 is a bit down. Map 3 is maybe 100 or so down. So for bad weather, let's say. If I select this, look what happens to the rev counter. It confirms by going to 3,000 RPM. I find that really quite cool. And then if we go to 2, up to 2,000, it's a small detail, but it is quite fun. And then map 1, so that's full power, that's how we're going to drive it. So they've done a few miles in the car. They've effectively done, I think, some running in, basically, some of the early gentle running in. Of course, I have to be aware not to go flat out until it's done. 1,000 miles would be good, getting on towards that 500 to 1,000 miles, so we have to think about this a bit as time goes by. So we'll get some driving done on the car before we get to the Nordschleife itself. Obviously have to run it on proper fuels. It's now got some race oil in the engine, some specific race oil, so it needs to have increased number of services due to the amount of power that it's putting out. But we've got 4-wheel drive, a 6-speed manual gearbox. This thing is going to be a proper pocket rocket. So let's get it on outside of the workshop, go for a little drive, and get familiar with what this is like. Time to take it outdoors then. You can hear that noise. It gets a little bit louder after it's actually been started up. So it's a lovely day outside at the moment. The RS is going to be ready and set for the drive on home. And I think this should be fairly entertaining. As you can see, there are some really nice toys around at the moment, and another RS just coming in as well at the same time. I can't believe it's actually finished. It's been a long, long time coming, and now it's going to be time to experience it. Off we go then, and the strange thing is, this basically feels like a completely new car again, because obviously running in, treating it like it's new. It's had a few other small updates, just making sure everything is perfect on the interior, but this is not the end. There's a lot more that's planned for this car, but already actually you can feel there's a deeper grunt to it. There's more, it's almost like the clutch is a bit heavier, can only use about 4,500 RPM. Yes, it's louder, it vibrates more, and I mean, it's a true project, isn't it? It's become a completely true project car. He says I've got the Lisso in my mirrors, actually, which is kind of cool as well. That thing that just looks imposing. But there's a lot, like I said, suspension, that kind of stuff, brakes, brake upgrades. We might do something with the gearbox too, but just to drive along gently. 3,000 RPM, you hear some burbles and crackles. This is in normal. If we put it into sport mode, it changes the car's mapping slightly in the sense of giving you a few more burbles, a more sensitive pedal. Yeah, we got some burbles there. Wow, the turbo noise! That was cool. It's going to be a while before I can fully unleash it, so going through a tunnel here, which I've filmed in the past having a lot of fun through, I've got to be a bit more reserved, because it's a strange concept. This is the first time I've ever tuned an engine of a car, tuned a car at all to this degree, to go completely crazy with it, because, well, you guys know how much I love the Focus RS, and I know there are still the jokes about the Focus RS is just to get the Ford GT, blah, 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 but it's completely disconnected, totally different division within Ford. Focus RSs come from dealers, Ford GT comes from the concierge in the US, and basically supplied by Multimatic. So there's like, it's not the same thing at all, and I actually had the GT allocation before I got a Focus RS at all. But I do love these things. I do a lot of driving, or have done a lot of driving between the 3 different cars that I've got, and obviously by having the Heritage that's completely factory stock, and it will stay that way, that gave the perfect, I suppose, test bed to have some fun with this car, the Red Edition, and tune it up. This is really interesting, actually. The different noises, it's a much deeper sound. And so much turbo and intake noise as well. The intake noise is crazy. The sucking in that you hear from up at the front. Just hear a bit of that as we accelerate a bit here. And the burbles. Oh, the wastegate. That's so cool. But it's early days. We've got to be gentle. We've got to look after it. It's just very nice to have this car now back in the garage. Oh, it just got very busy right in front all at the same time. Smooth move, everyone. Let's literally that time of year that people have forgotten how to drive. So some gentle miles, can't keep it at the same revs for too long, can't obviously give too much load at low revs, shouldn't idle it for too long, all of those kind of things, can't blip the pants off it. Just got to gently cruise. We'll get it filled back up because it's been sitting without a full tank. We'll get a full tank back into the car and continue the drive back towards London. I'll have some more thoughts and come back to you as well with what I'm going to do next. What is the next round with this car? I'm just cruising back into London, but check this out. If I put the car back into sport mode, confirm that, of course, we're not using very many revs, we go down to 4th gear, maybe down into 3rd gear. We're just over 3,000 RPM. Listen to this. The noise you get from the turbos, followed by those gunshots going off behind. It's monumentally epic. This is really good fun. But it also goes very quiet when you do pop it back into comfort mode and, you know, we'll take it out of sport mode basically. Sport mode enhances throttle response. Oh, there's a skip speeding down the motorway. It's not quite the motorway, but oh, we've got a little tunnel. Let's the echo of that, the reverberation. So yeah, this is quite entertaining, and this is just, I haven't even gone over, I don't think I've gone once over about, well, high 3,000 RPM, certainly not over 4,000 RPM. So good times ahead, that's for sure. And for now, it's just, I guess, a cruise back. While I am cruising through an average speed camera at 40 mph limit, which is the least delightful place in the world to drive, I'm actually going to pop it back into normal mode. Let's be chilled out for a moment and talk about what's going to happen next with this car. So there are a number of things, and the big one that I'm thinking about is the gearbox. Now, there could potentially be an option to put in a sequential gearbox, i.e. the kind where you literally bang it forwards and backwards like in a race car, like when I was driving in the Mini Challenger example, which would just be monumentally epic. That would give the car a little bit more power, as would doing a catless downpipe or something like that, but then it would also get really, really very noisy, and it's a bit questionable. I quite like the noise that this is making because you can drive it in a calm way if you want to. What else can we do? I've got some more interior pieces for the car, some more kind of carbon pieces to fit around the interior, trim, brake upgrades. Given the extra power, the natural progression would be to increase the performance and stopping power of the brakes, so that's definitely on the radar. There are a few more tweaks you can do to the engine, different tunes maybe, to push the number up a little bit as well, because I think, well, the target is this 500 horsepower number. 500 horsepower just seems like an epic kind of level to reach with a Focus RS, so that's the goal, we could say. I think it's already, well, I know from driving in the development car, this is already a lot of power. I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. From 350, he is on it. From 350 up to 470, let's say 475, that is already, well, what is it, 40%, 30%, something like that, of performance increase, which is pretty dramatic. What else is on the cards? That's more or less it. The suspension I touched on earlier. We can firm up the suspension. Red light, camera reported ahead. It's just every kind of camera nowadays. You can't drive around without like something going wrong. Anywho, the suspension system, we've got some thoughts about that to slightly tone up the dynamic side of things. So there are more options. I don't know exactly what order we're going to do what, because next up is to take this car to IAMS, Amsterdam Motor Show, then it will be at Car Freitag to enjoy it on the Nürburgring. Of course, this is basically what this setup is actually for, and then from Car Freitag, I suspect it may come back to the UK, pop back to Mtune, give it a quick service, check everything's running well, and then really just see where the wind blows and what happens next, and which by then, or maybe from some of your comments, what seems like the next stage. But we're getting somewhere. It's becoming a true animal, and I think the summer months, hopefully enjoying it more at the Nordschleife, are going to be very, very fun indeed. We've come straight back to home, but now we have these two side by side. So amusingly, I took a Ford to go and view the Ferrari before buying it, and now we've taken the Ferrari to go and pick up the Ford. The two very different hatchbacks, about as different as two hatchbacks could come. I think we've got The Lusso is quite subtle Grand Tour-esque, but with a powerful V12. The Focus RS is the shouty, angry little toy. The pocket rocket, the best way to describe it, I think, really, and that's what I'm going to be discovering more about as I can now start putting the miles on. So I'm very, very happy that we've had this part of the project, getting the engine done by Mtune to add and build upon everything else that's been done with the car. But both of these are now going to be going to the IAMS, the motor show in Amsterdam. They will be there throughout the show. I will also be there myself on the Thursday, the Friday, and the Saturday to catch up with you guys if you're in the Netherlands or nearby and are able to attend at IAMS. So there we go then. We've picked up the Red RS. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next out of the various different modifications that I'm thinking about for the next stages. But for today, the first outing in the Lusso since collecting it, to pick up the RS, not a bad way to spend a lovely day. That's it for now though. Thank you very much for watching as always, guys, and I'll catch up with you again very soon. Cheers!